brahmeti hovacha brahmano vaye tadvijaye mahiyatvamiti tato haiva vidan chakara brahmeti sa brahmeti hovacha brahmano vaye tadvijaye mahiyatvamiti tato haiva vidan chakara brahmeti. Uma reveals the truth. That's the title to this mantra. Sa brahmeti ovacha. Brahman indeed, she exclaimed. Indeed, through Brahman's victory alone, you have attained the glory. Then alone he understood that that spirit indeed was Brahman. Vidanchakara Brahmeti. Brahman indeed. She refers to here Uma. Uma, as we learned, his daughter, the most beautiful, extremely beautiful woman, as in the 12th mantra, it was qualified in that very space where the apparition was. The most beautiful Uma, the daughter of Himavan, appeared. And Indra asked, what was that spirit? And then there was a pause. There's a switch from the 3rd mantra to the 4th, an apparent break was introduced. And here Uma said, Brahman indeed. The spirit that you saw was Brahman. Through Brahman's victory alone, you have attained that glory. See, there's a very thin line, such a thin line, you might slip into the other side or slip into this side. What's the thin line, what we are talking about here? The verse or the mantra is saying, through Brahman's victory alone, you have attained the glory. What it means is, we should constantly remember the role of the providence, the role of that unknown power. We call it providence, we call it divinity, you might call it Brahman. That everything happens because of the support, because of the presence of Brahman. So when one is consciously told to entertain the thought of reality, every step, every breath, every walk of your way, every action, if you have that awareness right throughout every experience that everything's happening because of Brahman, there is a possibility that you would resign your action and attribute everything to Brahman, because you say everything's happening because of Brahman. So you might fall into that category. I repeat, for those who are not yet tuned in. The mantra says, the Brahman's victory alone, you have attained that glory. The gods have attained that glory because of the Brahman's intervention. Brahman is constantly enabling things to happen. You have forgotten that Brahman and you have become vainful. That's what the spirit, which was Brahman, the gods did not understand, and that's what Uma said. You fellows have become arrogant because you do not understand that God is that which is making everything happen in your life, man. You fellows don't realize it. You become too arrogant. Ahankar has come into you all. So I said there is a very thin line, and people tend to fall in either this side or that side. And one of it, I'm saying, when we are told to remember that God plays a role in every walk of your way, in every experience, every effort, every action, people tend to resign their efforts and start worshipping, start attributing, start believing that God above there would take care of things to happen because he is responsible for everything to happen. So when you do that, you would actually become tamasic in nature, because you have resigned your actions and you believe it is that unknown power that will pave way for your progress and your development. That is being tamasic. That's one side of it. The other side of it is people are unmindful of that providence. They don't think of the higher. They are not conscious of a divine power. They're not aware of a divine law which continuously intervenes, which continuously helps them in their progression, paves way for their future. They are unmindful of that and take entire credit to themselves and their efforts. These are the type of people who are rajasic in nature. They become vainful, they become arrogant. They are the Rakshasas. Asuric nature comes into them. So one side, people believe everything is happening because of providence and put no effort. Other side is people put in all their effort and take all credit to themselves, unmindful of the divine hand that mysteriously makes things happen. So either people are tamasic or rajasic, but sattva is where you got to bring in both these elements. The element of putting in sadhana, which is your self-effort. At the same time, at every moment, you got to remember that there is an unknown providence that continuously influences your action. So many people don't take the providence as a factor which is there in the action. The actions you're performing, there is that providence, there's ever present providence. It's like the oxygen I breathe, I take it for granted. I don't realize the importance of that oxygen which providence has provided me. I can't act without that ever-present oxygen, isn't it? So to understand that providence also influences my action is what the message Uma gives to whom? To whom is Uma speaking? Amitama? Don't tell me you're talking to us. I do not know whom she was speaking to.
To the
No copying, no copying, no copying. No cheating allowed.
yeah,
To whom was Uma speaking to?
To the earlier the people who were asking the question about it, what is the role of Vayu and all of that. Go and check the apparition to those people. Am I right, sir?
No.
No. Okay.
You are not at all. Completely lost the story.
Completely wrong.
Completely wrong. US. Who is Uma talking to? Whom is she speaking to?
To Indra, mind and the intellect.
Who is Indra?
The Lord of the gods.
So please say Lord Indra. Chumma neighbor Indra madri pesadingo. So Lord Indra is the Lord of all gods. So you know the story of first Agni approached to ascertain what that apparition was. Next, Vayu, the wind god. First is the fire god, then the wind god, and then Lord Indra approached, and then the apparition disappeared and Uma appeared. And Indra asked that question, what was that? And Uma answers in the first mantra, part 4, it was that Brahman. Through Brahman's victory, you have gained that glory. Then alone he understood that indeed it was Brahman. He refers to Indra. Then alone Indra understood. What does it mean? As I've said in the 12th mantra we did, where I remember very clearly mentioning, when Agni and Vayu approached, they were put to test. Agni and Vayu could not ascertain what that apparition was. But when Indra, the Lord Indra approached, the apparition disappeared and Uma appeared. What that meant is when you approach Brahman with your mind and intellect, even though you cannot capture God through emotion and knowledge, but when you integrate your head and heart, when there is a blend of your emotion and intellection, you get a vicarious experience of that Brahman. Please write it down verbatim. Then you'll understand what that means. When in the approach, which is the mind and intellect, approach Brahman, which is when you seek spiritual path through the mind and intellect, you get a vicarious experience of Brahman. Vicarious experience is an indirect experience of Brahman. So with concerted effort of knowledge and devotion, you gain the vicarious knowledge of the self. Which you will not get when you approach Brahman, which is when you perform spiritual practices by mere organs of action, which is mechanical rituals, or the organs of perception, which is auditory worship. I'm just repeating what was said earlier. So you should just remember these symbolic representations. Agni represents the organs of action. Organs of action symbolizes mechanical rituals. The organs of perception symbolizes the wind god, which means auditory worship. So when you perform spiritual practices through organs of action and perception, which means mechanical rituals and auditory worship, you will not get any spiritual experience. You will not get to Brahman. But when you perform the spiritual practice of approaching it with jnanam and bhakti, with devotion and knowledge, you will get a vicarious, indirect experience of the knowledge of the self, of the experience of the self. You've got to understand this. Have you all understood it? Have you got this captured? I'm not saying it for the first time, therefore I'm just passing through it. Shantima, have you got the concept? Have you got the particulars?
Yes, Guruji. Agni is like referring to the mechanical ritual which we perform through the organ of action, and Vayu is auditory worship which we will perform through the organ of perception. And with these two, we actually can't get to the experience of Brahman. So we need to use our mind and intellect, which where it's like, it's combined our jnana and devotion to get the experience of Brahman.
Vicarious experience
Vicarious
of Brahman.
Brahman.
Vicarious means indirect.
Indirect.
It's nothing but indirect.
Okay.
In the Sanskrit word for that is paroksha jnanam. Write it down. Harishi, could you just type it for us, please? Paroksha. P-A-R-O-K-S-H-A. Paroksha jnanam. G-N-A-N-A-M. Paroksha jnana means indirect knowledge, which is symbolized by Uma. Uma symbolizes paroksha jnanam. Now, the opposite of that, Hariji, can you kindly capture that as well? The opposite of that is aparoksha. Just add the word before that. Aparoksha jnanam equals pratyaksha. Aparoksha jnanam equals pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means direct perception. So direct perception is in brackets to pratyaksha, which is nothing but self-realization. Before you actually experience the self, you should have paroksha jnanam. You should have indirect experience of the self, is it not? It's like when you're approaching a city and the city is full of mountains. Let's say you're visiting a city which is in a mountainous area. As you're coming closer to the destination, don't you get the auditory, the visual of the mountainous range, the scenic range from a distance? That is the indirect. You have not actually experienced because you're not yet there. It's an indirect experience. But as you get to the destination, you check into the hotel, you come out into the balcony, or you actually go out into the mountain exploring, you are having the direct experience. So aparoksha is direct experience. Paroksha is indirect experience. So indirect experience is the sign of spiritual growth. When you have no experience at all, there is no spiritual growth. And you don't get spiritual growth when you perform mechanical rituals and auditory worship. Now, it is important for each of you to find out what percentage of your spiritual practice involves mechanical rituals and auditory worship. Find out. what percent of your spiritual practices, the amount of time you spend in spiritual sadhana. Don't say 24 hours I'm doing spiritual sadhana. Adalla, you can give lectures to somebody, but the real time that you spend in spiritual practices, how much of your time is spent on the mechanical rituals and auditory worship? Because we say they will not give you that spiritual experience, isn't it? Now I will ask why they don't give you the spiritual experience. Now, before I think about it, write down the question. Why is it that mechanical rituals and auditory worship does not give you that spiritual experience? The question is why. Before I get to interacting with you on the answers, I will take up that. I think Kamalji has something to clarify. Yes, sir.
Hari Om Guruji. I just wanted to clarify these three definitions of Pratyaksh Jnana, Paroksh Jnana, and Aparoksh Jnana, because my understanding previously was that Pratyaksh Jnana is only direct experience through perception organs, whereas Paroksh Jnana is the indirect experience, like we just now studied through the Shruti.
Yes.
And Aparoksh Jnana is kind of neither of those, or it's a direct experience, but not from the perception organs. It's a direct experience, but not from the perception organs. That was my understanding.
In fact, your understanding is 10% right. See, we usually use pratyaksha as something which has been your personal experience, which you have experienced through the golayas, which is your gross fleshy organs. Pratyaksha is direct perception. But I used it in the same context because it's a personal experience. When I say direct experience, it is not a heard say experience of the others. Is
Right.
You experience the self and you tell me and I get a feel of it. I understand what that is. That is indirect. But the direct is I have experienced it myself, means I have attained realization. In that sense, I meant. But if you take it strict by the term pratyaksha, it just means the physical perception, which can't be related to the spiritual experience of realization, because self-realization is not a physical. It's a transcending the grossness of the body, mind, and intellect. So technically, you're right, but in a general sense, I've used.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Sure. Right. So, right. So the question is, why don't you have the indirect experience of the self when you perform mechanical rituals and auditory worship? Which is anyway, the story also establishes that the fire god and wind god could not find out what that apparition was. So you will not progress spiritually if you perform mechanical rituals and auditory worship. The question is why? Arunama?
Hari Om Guruji.
Hari Om.
What I was thinking is, spiritual experience is a subjective experience. It is a becoming. But when you perform mechanical rituals and auditory worship, it is an objective experience. So something that is objective cannot take you to a subjective experience. So what is gross cannot give you a subtle experience. That is, I don't know, that is what I feel. So you have to transcend beyond that. You have to go beyond all this mechanical rituals, auditory worship. Okay, you have to go even beyond mind and intellect. Only then you can actually have the real spiritual experiences. These are only the means to the ultimate goal.
Now, if you say it is the means, then even the mind and intellect devotion and knowledge also are a means, aren't they?
Yes, they are a means, but they are,
But
yeah.
if that be so, are we not getting an indirect experience of the self? Are we not getting the glimpse of Brahman through your evolution? See, if you want to rephrase the question, why don't you spiritually evolve if you perform mechanical rituals and auditory worship? You don't evolve spiritually. In fact, your efforts are wasted in futile if you perform mechanical rituals and auditory worship. Why don't you progress spiritually? But you progress spiritually when you perform bhakti and jnana. You get the, it's the same thing. I'm just rephrasing it so that perhaps you can think a different. Not that you're wrong in your thought, but I'm just trying to get to perhaps the bullseye, get to the reason why you evolve or don't evolve.
Can we say because these things we get stuck with it? It's like the pole vaulter. You have to leave those and then go beyond it to reach there.
Even so knowledge. You can get stuck to bhakti also. You can get stuck to jnanam also. Everything is a pole vault. What is different? I'm only trying to drive home or clarify what is different which doesn't apply to this and applies to that. Because whatever you said as a means, it applies to all. Again, means, again, the pole vault, again, it's a means to get to cross the bar, the end, which is the goal. Again, you're saying the same thing. But you're not wrong, ma. I'm only saying there's something more than that. That's all I'm saying. Okay, ma? Right.
Thank
perfect.
You,
yes, ma. Think along.
Okay.
I need to chew a little bit of Haresh's head now.
Hariom Guruji.
Hariom Haresh.
Guruji,
could you please try again, Rajima? Yes, Haresh, could you please?
Yes, Guruji.
Yes.
Yeah. Guruji, to answer the question to the best of my understanding is.
Could I request you to please repeat the question, just that we ensure you got it right, please?
Yes. Why is it that mechanical rituals and auditory worship will not give you the spiritual experience?
Perfect.
My understanding is that because by performing mechanical rituals and auditory worship, we do it very habitually, and I think we lose the final objective or the focus of where we have to reach. And thus, this mechanical rituals and auditory worship becomes very routine based, and we get stuck in it. We get attached to the source of that. Hence, we don't go out of that zone to look for the final realization path by constantly performing this, because we don't think further ahead. We get stuck in this cycle. And I think we lose a point of what we have to leave this rituals and auditory worship to go to a higher state of ourselves. It's done very ritualistically. I mean, very mechanically rather, habitually rather, for years and years and years, and we lose sight of the end goal. Because I think at some point we actually come to believe that is the ultimate end, without realizing that that is not the ultimate.
You explained it very beautifully, but I would say I haven't really got what I'm looking for. Why it doesn't help you in your progression? Think along, Harish. I'm not necessarily that you're wrong. In fact, you're not wrong at all. You explained it correctly, but please think along. Okay. Yes, Setuji. Yeah.
Hari Om Guruji.
Hari Om, Guruji.
You cannot spiritually evolve or reach Brahman through organs of action and perception. So, that is they are gross.
No. See, sir, we have actually rephrased it just to ensure that we get to the right spirit of the question. The rephrased question is, as Haresh also repeated, that why do mechanical rituals and auditory worship don't help in your spiritual progression? So if you are engaged in the ritualistic portion and the auditory worship, you do not evolve. And the fact that we're examining is because a large percentage of spiritual practitioners spent a chunk of their time on rituals and auditory worship.
They are organs of action and perception. It is totally mechanical in nature, and our heart is not with the thing. It's repetitive and it is mechanical.
Okay, fair enough. I get what you're saying, sir. All right, okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, yeah, Tinkima.
Hari Om Guruji. Mechanical rituals and bhajan, auditories, bhajans and all that, they
Yes.
are expressions of one's devotion, but they are not actually devotion. Can we say that? So devotion is like surrender, love for the divine, and these are expressions of that. So there's some very fine line, I think, between the two.
You're right. In fact, that there are expressions vis-a-vis the feeling. There are the outer shell. There is the outer shell, and then there's the kernel, isn't it? Like even the grain has a kernel, and then there's the shell, which is the actual grain. So when we talk of the kernel and the shell, the outer and the inner, we are talking about the essentials and the non-essentials. So spiritual progression will happen only when you perform the essentials in spiritual practice. Therefore, what I was looking at is the mechanical rituals and auditory worship are non-essentials of religion. Since they are non-essentials, it doesn't help you evolve in your growth. It doesn't directly result in your spiritual transformation. It only gives you an environment. It only creates a conducive environment. Please mark my words and don't misunderstand me. Rituals and auditory worship create a conducive environment. It's like you prepare the soil, you remove the weeds, you remove the rubbish, clear the soil, make it conducive for the sap for the planting, but you've not planted a seed. Nothing will sprout. A matter of time, again, the shrubs and all that weeds will grow. So the seed of spiritual growth is knowledge and devotion, which is the elements of engaging your mind and intellect. So when you get to knowledge and devotion, these are the essentials. Now, people don't talk of it. They talk of the other, which is auditory worship and mechanical rituals. The accent is more there because it's easy to propagate. It's easy to teach. And as we said, it is grosser in nature. Many people are drawn to the non-essentials of religion. It is easy to teach, it's easy to practice, it's easier to drawn to because of grossness. So those who are teaching it's easy, and those who are practicing and picking it up also find it easy because it is of a lower nature. But it's difficult to embark on the essentials, which is the intellection, the knowledge element, and the aspect of devotion, bhakti. This is the difficult element. Therefore, you need to do a lot more sadhana to be able to impart it. And since it's subtle, there's that many few people who take to it. This is an observation which is being presented indirectly in the verse. So the non-essentials vis-a-vis the essentials. Now, I also told you all to find out what percentage of your time you are investing in the non-essentials. You got to find out. There's nothing as an acceptable percentage, please. There's nothing as acceptable. You got to know. Reddy Garu, what percentage?
Pranam Guruji.
Namaskar.
It could be very, very difficult in my understanding, Guruji, to define a percentage here, because both are interwoven and integrated together. We're talking about an intellect and bhakti, the devotion. So we cannot really see both separately and way which is moving which direction, or which is growing up, which is less. Maybe more of intellect may lead to devotion, may not be. More of devotion may lead to intellect. I think that's where I'm a little confused. Will it be putting in efforts in one area will able to evolve better?
No. The one doesn't help evolve the other. So
Yeah.
all of us have got the mind and intellect, but none of us have got the same combination of the mental and intellectual personalities. So what emotional percentage and what intellectual percentage is what you got to find out. What is your percentage? What's your proportion? It could be 70-30, it could be 60-40, it could be 90-10, whatever be the percentage, that is your proportion. So you got to bring in those two elements to make it work for you. Just because, let's say it is 70-30 for you, 70% you are intellectual and 30% devotional. You can't try to make 30% to 60% and reduce the intellection to 40%. It will not work. See, your constitution, your basic vasanas, your basic personality has made you what you are, which is 70% intellection, 30% devotion. So you got to bring that to the forefront to bring in optimum performance for you to progress spiritually. So having realized 70-30, are you doing that 70-30?
Yeah, I think Guruji, I think first and most that we need to know where we stand in the whole of the roadmap of where 70-30, because we need to identify self, where we are in the whole of the journey. I think that could be the first and most thing for us to, then we can think of evolving, trying to work on how to be progress further.
Correct. Firstly, as we said, there's a non-essential. Realize what is non-essential, what is essential. Having got to the essential, it is thereafter very essential to find out what is your percentage, what is your proportion, and then do as your constitution demands, as your personality demands, for you to evolve. It's like, it's like fine-tuning an engine, sir. You just take a screwdriver and you start tightening or loosening a screw. What it matters is if you tighten it a little more or loosen a little more, and it is that ideal tuning is all matters is it's just that little turn, that's all, isn't it?
Yes.
Entire performance is just that little
It's something like your radio where you're trying to connect to the specific station.
Perfect.
The fractions of digitals will make a difference.
94.7. The 0.7 is matter. So you are the 0.6 or 0.8, nothing will come.
That's exactly.
So it's that perfect tuning is what that's essential. And this is difficult. Since it's difficult and subtle, not many get to it. Majority are lost in the out. Somebody in answering, I don't know who said that, auditory worship and mechanical rituals are objective. In fact, I think it's Arunama who said that. You're outward.
Yes.
In the other day, Atmabodha class, I don't know which class we learned, he said, worship the shrine of Atman within. Where was that? Don't you remember the usage of that phrase? Worship the shrine of the Atman. He says, Atman is in the shrine of your own personality. Where was that? Vasantama, Enga mother? Yes, ma.
Hariom Guruji.
Yes.
It is Atma Bodha, last verse.
Remember the Atma Bodha last verse. What did he say there?
He said you should worship the Atman within. That much.
Yeah. He used the word in terms of the shrine of the Atman. The shrine. What do you mean a shrine?
A place where divinity
is invoked, isn't it? You invoke God or Brahman or you use it as a place of worship, a temple or a shrine. So he says, worship the shrine of Atman within. Not so if you have to, you go outward to worship God, mechanical, objective, non-essential. It will not take you anywhere closer to Brahman. That's what directly he's saying. So either you worship it inward or you worship it outward. There is no holier place than that which is within you, isn't it? Yes, Solita, don't plan a trip to. Yes, Solita, you will plan a trip to Badrinath, Kedarnath. Don't do that.
Not now.
Not now. No, fair enough. But let me know if you are going. I also will join.
Be more with the divine outlook we can go.
Absolutely. Yes, very much. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Reddy Garu.
Guruji, while we are saying that on these mechanical rituals and auditory things, what is the rule most of the people strongly believe and conduct and perform the homams? Are they not an integral part of happening? It is more about satisfying self.
No,
because sometimes I keep getting this into conflict of my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarify it. See, yajna is an ancient Vedic ritual where you invoke the fire god and you perform the ritual amidst Vedic chanting. So it's usually a community worship, So when you do, you're in and around, the community is invited. So it's not something you do as a family ritual. It's a community worship. But it was a mere ritual before the great Vyasa impregnated it. In fact, what the great Vyasa did is he gave a new meaning to that mere worship of the fire god. In the 4th chapter, he says there are 12 yajnas that is going on, where he says how every karma, every action can be converted into a yajna, into worship. And every action has got 3 elements: receipt of stimuli, reaction within your personality, responses back into the world. So right from receipt to response, how every action should be converted into yajna. So what the great Vyasa did, he converted a mere ritual into an abhyasa, sadhana. So if you just perform the yajna which is to put a trough. You build a trough, you get the firewood, you get the ingredients, you call the pujaris, you call a gathering, and you sit and spend 3 hours performing the Agni Homam. It's a ritual. It's an objective worship. But what the great Vyasa did in the Gita, in the 4th chapter, he says, it is not a mere objective worship. It's a subjective experience, which you must convert every action into yajna.
Okay.
And he says not one yajna, the 12 yajnas you can perform. How you can convert every receipt into worship. So it is not again a mere ritual, sir. It is symbolic. But somebody could spend time performing an elaborate ritual. There's nothing wrong, I'm saying. I've been myself happy to participate. Not that I've myself initiated anything in the family front or personal front, but somebody invited. I'm very happy to be a part because it has a very divine feeling. But again, it is only the soil. Thereafter, the ritual becomes non-essential. That's why I said it is important for you to find out what is the percentage of non-essentials, which is rituals you're performing. So you sitting with the literature and studying can be performing a yajna going on. That's why we call these lectures as Gita Jnana Yajna. It's a invoking of the knowledge of the self. It's a yajna going on. So how every aspect of a yajna is actually connected with action. Perhaps another day I will go into every element of yajna and compare it to every element of action and say how there's a parallel. You can convert an action to yajna. Yes, is exactly what I'm referring to in the 4th chapter.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Guruji.
Right. In fact, I know a family who used to perform yajna every weekend in their house, and as a result of which every month they have to paint their entire house. Because imagine, can you performing the ritual in their house, inside, the whole entire walls are all tarnished, literally, or a layer of smoke everywhere. So they had to paint. They didn't know what color was their wall. It gets into a certain, anything beyond its intended purpose is non-essential. All right. So we got into this. Yes, Hariji.
Hariom Guruji. When we say that the mechanical and the auditory worship are non-essentials and the mind and intellect, they are the essential, is it not, does it not depend on the stage of our development? See, if I am a totally unevolved and less than the basic thing, for me, the mechanical ritual and the auditory worship becomes essential at that stage. Only when I develop, I go to the stage 1, from stage 0 or negative stage to I become stage 0, then to stage 1, then to stage 2. Only when I evolve to a certain extent, then the auditory worship and mechanical worship becomes non-essential. If I put it one more point, if we now, we have seen Lord Vayu and
Agni.
Agni, they go, sorry. they go and the moment they fail, they immediately return. They don't ask any question. Whereas in case of Lord Indra, when he goes and when that apparition disappears, he still doesn't leave the place. He is standing there and he is questioning and he is thinking. Whereas in the other two cases, he just returns. So that shows the Lord Indra's stage, that he is able to think, he is able to question Pariprashana. Why? Who is that? Whereas in case of the first two lords, they didn't question at all. The moment they failed, they returned. So I feel we should not get into I'm talking about a person of my state, that I should not get into an intellectual arrogance, which I was in my very, very early stage, that I used to talk derogatory people who used to go to the temple, and I myself was not entering into the temple while my wife was going to said these are all non-essentials. But now I feel that what I did at the time was not correct. I never used to. My wife will get into the temple and pray, and I will stand outside. I said, these are all whatever money you are paying there, that can be given to a poor. I used to think in a different way. But when I sit today and when I reflect, will I repeat the same thing if I happen to go through the same experience? I think I will not.
Right.
So if I say non-essential, I should not get to we should not get to a sort of a feeling that I can just ignore it. If you allow me to, maybe that I will talk about it in another class, that we spent money on building temple and all, but that is probably important to see that our age-old culture and age-old wisdom is not getting disappeared. That becomes as a reminder.
Right. See, I've heard you.
I'm not trying to argue here. I'm trying to express.
No.
Please don't mistake me.
No, not at all. Not at all. I know there is no element of challenging or arguing here. It's just a genuine.
That is not there at all.
Yes. No. I know it's not there at all. In fact, it's needless to mention because it's not there at all. Now, but when we say non-essential, it is not that one should develop an arrogance towards it. That is ahankar. Then the knowledge itself, which you're learning, is of no use to you.
Yeah. But is it not, my question is it not essential for me when I am in a negative stage or in a zero stage to purify my mind? Or otherwise, all these rituals and the Vedanta comes only at the end of Vedas. The initial part is all rituals and to purify our mind. If it were,
see, the rituals are essential because they convey the deeper meaning, which is directly given through the knowledge. So rituals is, in fact, you can say rituals is paroksha jnanam.
Yeah.
Indirectly, you know what you are gaining through aparoksha.
Yeah.
So when you perform, as I said, when Reddigare asked a question, the yajna is symbolic.
Yeah.
So whether it is essential or not, it is not for me to decide. It is how you approach the ritual. But rituals are an integral part of your spiritual sadhana.
Yeah,
Get that right.
That is.
I've never said that, nor this text saying that they are. It's an integral. So you have to engage these rituals because that is the journey to get to the truth. Yeah. But when you get lost in them, not understanding what they're conveying, it becomes non-essential. So it is, in fact, when I was clarifying earlier with the question, there's nothing as an ideal percentage, how much rituals you must perform. It's all subjective. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you asked, when is it, isn't it essential to someone? If you are at a minus percentage, you use some percentages to clarify that. Sir, if your mind and intellect is not developed, for such a person, you perform Hatha Yoga.
Yeah.
Spiritual sadhana begins when your mind and intellect are developed. That's when you perform karma, bhakti, jnana.
Yeah.
So you are not in the spiritual journey when your mind and intellect is not developed at all.
Okay.
So the question doesn't arise. Even to the most developed, ritual is an integral part. You would perform in some form. It may be elaborate, it may not be elaborate. But it is still a ritual. Even to put a tilak on your forehead is a ritual. Is it not?
Yeah, sure.
So therefore, we are not sitting condemning the rituals. That is not the intended intention. When we say rituals are non-essential, it becomes non-essential when it becomes mechanical. Please get that right. Rituals per se are an integral part, but when they become mechanical, it becomes non-essential.
It should not become an end in itself.
You got it. And that's when it becomes mechanical. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Right. I think Shubhama wants to clarify something. Shubha, you could actually use that feature of raising your arm in the chat, not your physical arm. Physical arm you can raise, I know, but there is a feature in the Zoom. You can. It should not be difficult to. Maybe
Yeah.
Harish, if Harish can, yes, Harish, can you please hold on for a couple of minutes, please? Okay. Yeah, Shubhama.
Yeah, when I was wondering, there is a question when we say this mechanical ritual auditory worship, Guruji. I think what is happening when Reddy Garu also said, when the other person Harishji also said that he was not going to that temple, he used to stand outside. I do agree to all that, because we were also doing certain things only through a medium, like we used to call Pantulu home. So a Pantulu is a person who comes, I feel, how can he spiritually evolve if he's doing mechanical worship? He's doing only for his income. It is his, there is
livelihood.
There is effort. He's coming daily, he's coming weekly once, but we have to give some dakshina for him. So we are also doing it in a materialistic way, Guruji, or how it is like that person who is coming, we fear him that he is the messenger of God. We have to give a lot of respect and call him and do certain things on a certain day. And when we go to the temple also, we see him and is that when you say mechanical ritual and auditory worship, whatever the Pantulu is doing to the temple, and when he is coming home and doing, we are doing it's only for the sake of our spiritual evolvement. Are we doing it through a medium, or how is it like? We are keeping him as a medium to reach that spiritual contentment. Is it very? I don't know how it. When everybody, I have seen many people getting them regularly and doing it and paying the dakshina, thinking that is a big effort. So when you said mechanically and auditory, we don't do anything every day. We just keep somebody to reach to that higher goal. So by doing, by calling people, by doing something like that, you know, vidama apdi pannindirka. Is it like that? Do you say that the Vadyar and those Pantulu and all, they are all, or they are only, they don't spiritually evolve?
Ma, I get what you're asking. And
it is
not
Yes.
I get it. I get it. It is not mine, nor should it be our objective to sit and judge whether they are spiritually evolving or not. Now, whether they are doing it as a sadhana or they are doing it for their livelihood, it's their job, it's their business. It's not my headache. And it should not be my headache. Point one. Secondly, you cannot delegate your spiritual development to somebody else and say, they will chant for me and I will evolve on my behalf. That is not possible. You can't even delegate your health to your son. Your son is going every day to the gym. You can't tell your son, Ma, hey, you do one more round of 10 more minutes treadmill you do for my sake. He will become healthier. You may not become as healthy as you intended because you've delegated your spiritual health to your son because he is regularly exercising. If something is not logically possible at the physical level, how do you think the law will apply at the spiritual subtle level? It will not. So in answer to your question, it is none of our business to sit and judge whether they are evolving or not. They could be doing it as the highest spiritual practice, or they could be doing it just to make a living or to get dakshina from you. It's for them to decide. And secondly, if you engage them out of fear, I know you use the word fear, because this is what I said. These people have created a demand by instilling that fear, and people easily fall a prey to that fear. And you have no choice but to engage because you approach it out of fear and thinking that you are doing the right thing because you have an inbuilt respect for this culture and the fear that is instilled. You fall a prey to it. And by doing that, you don't evolve. It doesn't transform you because there is no effort on your behalf. So you can't delegate your spiritual transformation. But with the knowledge, with the understanding, it's most likely one gets stuck in that practice. It's very rare. You got to have extraordinary wisdom to use that for your development. So the jnanam element is very, very important. When the knowledge or the jnanam element is not existent, that's when one gets into the non-essential. That's when it becomes non-essential, rather. It becomes non-essential. Okay. All right. Ma, I'm afraid we can't hear you, but I hope you got what I've said. No, we still can't hear you. You may have to unmute, please.
Is it, I just want to know, getting that person itself is non-essential for us?
I will not say any comment on that. It is not for me to decide. If you ask me, would I would not, because I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. What my physical requirement, again, I'm using the same example. What my physical body requires for me to be healthy, is it the same what your physical body requires, man? No. So how can I decide what is your spiritual requirement? You have to figure it out. You're not asking, you're asking a general question. I'm giving a general answer. I'm not being specific to Shubhama and say you should. If at all, it has to be an independent consultation. You come up to me and say, so this is my personality. This is what I am. Should I do or not? Then I will calibrate the answer as per your requirement. But in a classroom like this, I can't give and I will not give a general thing. It's an individualistic thing. You ask me, do I do that? I don't do that because I don't need it. My spiritual requirement is different. So your spiritual requirement, you have to meet it out. Whether it's essential, non-essential, it's for you to figure it out. All right. So it is not a blanket answer. Okay, ma. All right. Yes, Harish.
Guruji, Hariom, can you hear me, Guruji?
Yes, yes.
Guruji, you mentioned earlier on a few minutes ago, in the like doing rituals, it is the journey to get to the truth. But Guruji, what about any person who does not do any rituals whatsoever? I know a number of people who do no rituals or almost minimal rituals. Does that mean they cannot get to the truth because they don't do rituals at all or at the minimal level?
No, no, no. See, as I said, rituals are an integral part of our spiritual journey. So the moment I greet you folding my palms together also is a ritual. It's symbolic. Even putting a tilak is symbolic. So you lighting a camphor or a candle or burning an incense stick is also a ritual, because a camphor symbolizes something, an incense stick symbolizes something, you know. So it could be the most minimalistic element of ritual is invariably there in any spiritual practitioner, unless you say, I am an atheist, I have got nothing to do with this, and I worship only the senses and sensual indulgences. I am an outright materialistic and sensual fellow. And we're not talking of such people here. We're talking of spiritual people here. So if you're in the spiritual journey, rituals are an integral part, because this is a package. It comes, package means this is how the great masters have introduced this subtle philosophy in the form of rituals, so that it caters, because everybody is not purely intellectual. They had to cater to a broad cross-section of people who are not intellectuals. So to accommodate them and draw them into the spiritual field, rituals were introduced. So it caters to a range of spiritual practitioners. So even the most highly evolved will invariably engage in certain rituals, because it is a part of your practice. Worshipping the sun god the moment you wake up, it's a ritual. Surya Namaskar you do, you know, Gayatri mantra you chant, or it's difficult to think that a person who is truly spiritual is not engaged in some form of ritual or not. It's very difficult to come to that understanding. So they'll invariably be.
Thank you, Guruji. And one other question to this question. If they don't perform any rituals, sometimes I have very friendly conversations with people in the community and friends, and a few that do not perform rituals, we have very, very nice conversations to understand things about ourselves. And I've also heard people tell me that even though they don't perform any rituals, they pray in their heart. They say we pray in our minds. We speak to our God, our higher in our heart. We don't perform it mechanically. And we believe in a divine power. We believe in a higher power. We do believe in God. So we pray in our hearts, but we don't perform rituals. Is that, do they fit into this situation of growth?
You can't blow it out of proportion and say that's entirely right. Because as I said, there's some element of ritual somewhere in their lives. But per se, they're not wrong when they say that. But that by itself is not entirely the truth.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
that
you.
By itself. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Rajima.
Guruji, having let's say overcome the non-essentials and moving towards the essentials, having entered the spiritual field, yet we need devotion and the knowledge. Here the devotion, in my understanding, would be devotion to the Guru and the scriptural knowledge, which is Brahma Vidya. Is that the right understanding, Guruji? Devotion to the Guru and the scriptural knowledge that is being offered through the Guru, and our own knowledge which we kind of do manana and then understand and then evolve, spiritual evolvement. Is that right, Guruji?
Yes,
Devotion,
yes.
Devotion is not the non-essential devotion, but the essential devotion, which is to the Guru and the scriptures.
But a fanatic attachment to the Guru also becomes non-essential, because Guru also gets suffocated at times. So he also needs little freedom,
Right.
little space. Don't suffocate him.
Right. Yes, Guruji.
All right. Okay. Right. No, you're right, Ma. As long as, see, Guru, again, we mentioned about the various rituals people get on with it, even with the Guru, it becomes non-essential. A Guru as a person, a Guru can be even a book, a literature can be a Guru. A dead Guru is a literature. How would you treat that? It doesn't necessarily has to be a person, a personality. That's what Ekalavya made a statue of his Guru and learned from that. So it can always, that word Guru itself has a very broad connotation.
Remover of darkness.
That's it. So, okay, right. Yes, Sushma Ma.
Guruji, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
I have a question about bhakti. I had a feeling that to me, bhakti is that in my heart and mind, I have an attitude of gratitude towards Bhagwan, that he's blessed me with so much, and even more than what I desire or I need. And also, also whether I get good or bad in my life, whatever I get, anukul or pratikul, I always should have attitude of gratitude, because we always have gratitude for if you're getting something good. But when something not so good happens in our life, normally we have a complaint or something. But if you have bhakti, you accept that the Lord has given this to me also for my evolvement or for me to grow. So I should accept that with gratitude also. And I don't know how to practice bhakti, because this is, I think, a feeling you have in your heart. When you say practice bhakti, what does it really mean?
Right. See, your concept or understanding of bhakti is perfect, which is an attitude of gratefulness for what providence has already provided, a thankfulness. Expression of bhakti is through karma and seva. When you have that bhakti in you, that is when you serve exactly the same way as when you have a feeling of love, let's say, to your grandchild. How would you express that love to the grandchild? That love you have, a genuine feeling of affection to your grandchild, you serve the grandchild. When you know your grandchild is coming to spend a few days with you, you know what he likes, you may put effort and prepare something for him, isn't it? You buy something and give something which he likes, so you're actually serving him. You're providing for his well-being. Exactly the same way, when you have love for God, it will express in the form of unselfish and selfless work. Towards whom? Towards his creation. So love for God is love for his creatures and his creation. So how much you can provide for those who are in need. So expression of bhakti is unselfish and selfless work.
Thank you, Guru.
Thank you. Perfect. So you don't ask anything for yourself, but you serve those who need. That is karma.
if I pray that thanking God for He's given me more than my needs, I also pray that please make my heart so full, so I don't know how to express it, that I should want to give because I have so much. I should have the feeling I want to give it to other people and share it, and also have an attitude of gratitude towards them that they have given me an opportunity to help them, and not have my ahankar that I'm helping them. I should only feel that God has given me, and also if God had not given me a large heart to be able to part with that, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I'm even that attitude of gratitude to Bhagwanji, that thank you for giving me that attitude that I want to give to other people to help them and never have ahankar. That's what so far my attitude, my understanding has been.
You know, my one request to you, Ma, is you should not ask questions. You please give some advice to all of us.
No, Guruji, I'm not. Please.
Because
I'm
whatever you say is
well,
no.
talking about, jnanam and bhakti will lead you to self-realization. So jnanam, and you say how much percentage you spend. So now I'm thinking that I also do rituals, I like sing bhajan and all, I like to do that. But I also spend a lot of time like listening to the shastras when you're explaining, and sort of doing manan over them and writing notes and all. So that is my idea of the time I spend on Gyan. But I was thinking I spend time on bhajan and ritual a little bit. But when you say spend time on bhakti, how do I spend time on bhakti? This is what my question I was feeling in my heart. That's why I asked you.
No. You are a sent person, right? As I said, there's nothing that I wouldn't take a word out of anything that you have said. It's perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. Right. I think Sushma Ma, somebody should connect with her. I don't know who would connect with her amongst, maybe Gayatri Ma. Please connect with Sushma Ma and tell her this, how she could use this feature of raising the hand. I know when I was talking to somebody, you are actually constantly raising your hand, and I know it would hurt you, anybody for that matter. So there's a feature. It would take a simple step. Gayatri Ma, maybe you can connect with her later on and teach her that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes, Guruji. I will send her the screenshots. She will understand.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Ma. Right. A couple of clarifications. Setuji has asked, can rituals be performed mindfully with devotion? Indeed. As I've said, rituals are integral, essential for our spiritual growth. They become non-essential when we don't realize what they are intended for and what they convey and communicate. So when it is done unmindfully, it becomes non-essential. So when rituals are performed unmindfully, without understanding, without knowledge, it becomes non-essential. And you become fanatic. So when rituals are performed without understanding or without knowledge, it becomes non-essential. You become a fanatic. It becomes an impediment in your growth. It doesn't help you evolve. But when the same ritual is performed with an understanding, it's like simple ritual of saluting the national flag. I may get up in the morning and salute the national flag or chant the national anthem. And all of that, I may spend 3 minutes to chant our national anthem. How long does it take to chant the national anthem? 3 minutes, maximum 4 minutes. You have got 23 hours and 55 minutes rest of the day. Mr. Harish Kumar, you chant national anthem for 5 minutes and salute the national flag. What are you supposed to do 23 hours, 55 minutes rest of the day?
do your work with purity, but keep these thoughts in your mind. I mean, don't go against this.
What thoughts?
Of nationalism, of doing things beyond your own limited self.
Correct. So that 5-minute ritual is to instill that spirit of national consciousness, isn't it? Rest of the day. Now, what is the percentage of that 5-minute ritual vis-a-vis the actions you're performing throughout the day? Sethuji, if I can perform that ritual of saluting the national flag or doing the chanting the national anthem or putting the flag pegged on your shirt, or you can do whatever you're doing. But if you're doing anti-national things, that ritual has no meaning. Has it got any meaning? No meaning. I can pray to the Lord mechanically, I can go to the temple, but throughout the day, if I'm doing selfish, egoistic, self-centered activities, it is as good as doing anti-national things, anti-spiritual things. It is not going to help. But if I perform that with that spirit of instilling that consciousness, it's all that matters. And even if I'm not able to perform a ritual for some reason, as long as that spirit is restored, you're justified, isn't it? Okay, sir? So the knowledge should not destroy the rituals. The knowledge should actually embellish the rituals. It is meant to embellish and enrich the practices, not to destroy it. So don't ever develop ahankar. It is not to develop any ahankar. It's just to enrich the performance of rituals. And as you grow, all I can say is the need of the performance becomes less. The rituals become subtler and subtler. I would say getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and doing a sadhana swadhyaya is a ritual. It's the most auspicious ritual. Now, how many of you do that? I do not know. But to get up in the morning and every day to study and to open this text and read and try to understand and churn your intellect itself is a ritual. I can't think of a better ritual than that. Whether you are able to relate to it or not, I do not know. Okay. And Hariji, I don't think I have the time and luxury to take up your clarification. Okay, Hariji, yes. Before Hariji, you say, I think there was another comment, a comment by Arunama. Okay, Arunama, where you say, okay. Can bhakti or jnanam alone give us the ultimate spiritual experience? Technically, yes. On paper, yes. Where are you? Arunama, where are you? Ah, okay, yeah. So technically or on paper, yes, but nobody is entirely intellectual or nobody is entirely devotional. So since everyone is a combination of the head and heart, you have to essentially integrate both the practices. You can't take one standalone, but theoretically it's possible. Okay. Hariji, please hold on. Don't mute yourself. Just hold on. Arunama. No, please hold on, Hariji. Arunama may want to clarify to what I've said.
Yeah, Guruji, I would like to ask a question regarding this. That's why I asked, because I don't know whether my knowledge is correct, because we have read about experiences like Mirabai, Saint Tyagaraja, all of them becoming self-realized through the bhakti alone. So I was just thinking whether we do like, maybe like what Guruji was telling, people like us, we really need both the head and the heart. So can it be just bhakti alone, as we have seen in these people, give them the ultimate spiritual experience?
Now, why don't you take example of the great Ramana Maharshi?
Yeah.
He attained moksha through pure jnanam, through complete silence. Would you practice that?
No, we wouldn't. We are not at that level.
People tried to practice that because the great Ramana did that. But where was Ramana Maharshi? Where are you and I? You just can't practice something what they did. The mistake people do is you try to practice what they did. We should not do just because Mirabai sang and attained moksha, or Saint Tyagaraja attained moksha. I also can't start singing Kirtane. Sing, but lock yourself in the bathroom. Outside also people will lock. Inside and outside will be locked because we can't tolerate the discord. But you may attain moksha.
It's a clarification, Guruji. I know I cannot do it.
I'm not telling you at all. I'm only saying, because if you're inspired by Tyagaraja, I can't sing,
It's
No,
an
I'm not telling.
intellectual query. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you,
What I'm
Guruji.
saying is we can't follow either extreme bhakti or extreme devotion. But these are personalities which stood out. That's why I said, yes, it's possible on paper, but in reality, none of us are purely either. We are a mix of both. Okay, ma?
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you so much.
Yes, right. Most welcome. Hari Om. Yes, Hariji, lastly.
Yeah, this is not a question. I just wanted to make my observation. If we look at Jagadguru Shankaracharya, he has also written a lot of prayers, and he has established mutt in different in all the in south, east, west, and north, and also some temples. So for me, he has given a lot of indication by doing this that we cannot ignore. It is a stage that we have to see, and by step we have to progress. This is my observation. Number two, about the pujari, which we were talking about. You imagine a temple without a pujari. It will become a museum. It may be okay that that pujari may be earning a little bit, because that he has to earn his living. So I don't mind paying something, even as a sort of a devotion. At least he is coming over there, which I am not able to do, to go and do the maintaining the temple. I am happy that at least some people are there who have devoted, who has devoted their life for this type of work. And if a temple without a pujari, I don't know whether we will be going over there.
So
something is that when I go and when I hear the prayer, something is getting tickled in me. It may not take me to the highest level, but some amount of my thought process is getting tickled. And I don't know, I'm not able to express it fully, but I feel that you understand what I want to say.
Yes. In fact, we are not being dismissive. So there's no need to be so explicit, Hariji, because we are not the discussion, and it would never ever be that
I
way.
understand.
Nor was it. There's no necessity to explicitly put that way, because it is not being intended. So it's not necessary as a point, because we are saying we are upholding the culture and tradition. It's not being challenging or dismissive.
No,
so yeah, so I understand. Okay, Arunama, you have something to say, or is it okay? Right. Okay. So Brahman indeed, Uma said, through Brahman's victory alone, you have attained glory. We have forgotten Indra and Uma. So I'm just reminding everybody that Uma said it was Brahman indeed. So Indra remembered and we forgotten his Brahman. So just for that sake, I had to read the translation. We'll come back. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om.